In just 37 seconds, what started as lighthearted banter between Jennifer Hudson and soul sensation Teddy Swims would explode into one of the most shocking confrontations in daytime television history. 37 seconds of mounting tension that would see Hudson's carefully crafted public persona crumble, revealing a side of the host that left audiences stunned, and a Grammy-nominated artist storming off her stage in disgust. This is the untold story of how a conversation about authenticity turned into an all-out character assassination that nobody saw coming. The Jennifer Hudson Show's studio felt electric that night, as cameras rolled for what producers had promised would be an intimate conversation with one of music's most genuine voices. Teddy Swims, born Jayton Dimsdale, had been riding high on the success of his breakthrough single, Lose Control, and his appearance was meant to showcase the down-to-earth personality that had endeared him to millions. Hudson, dressed in a sharp burgundy blazer, seemed relaxed as she welcomed the tattooed crooner to her signature purple couch, but those who knew her well might have noticed the slight tension in her smile. "So, Teddy," Hudson began, her voice carrying that trademark warmth that had made her a beloved figure in entertainment, "you've got this incredible story of persistence, working odd jobs, playing dive bars for years before breaking through. Tell us about that journey." Swims leaned forward, his eyes lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. "Man, Jennifer, it's been wild. I was literally delivering food, doing construction work, whatever it took to pay the bills while chasing this dream. There were nights I'd play to maybe 5 people in some smoky bar, wondering if I was crazy for thinking I could make it in this business." Hudson nodded, but something in her expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Right. The whole working-class hero narrative. It's very marketable, isn't it?" The comment hung in the air for a moment, and Swim's smile faltered slightly. "I'm sorry. What do you mean by that?" "Oh, nothing," Hudson said with a wave of her hand, but her tone had developed an edge that hadn't been there moments before. "It's just that everyone in the industry has their angle these days. The underdog story sells records, doesn't it?" Members of the studio audience began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the warm, supportive atmosphere they'd come to expect from Hudson's show. Swims maintained his composure, but his posture straightened noticeably. "Look, Jennifer, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but my story isn't an angle. It's my life. Those weren't photo ops at construction sites. That was me trying to survive while following my passion." Hudson's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Oh, please, Teddy, let's be real here. You think the audience is stupid? Everyone knows how this game works. You get your little blue-collar backstory, maybe show some pictures of you in work boots, talk about struggling to make ends meet, and suddenly, you're more relatable than the next guy." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Camera operators exchanged glances, unsure whether to keep rolling as their usually gracious host transformed before their eyes. Swim's jaw clenched visibly, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. "Are you seriously questioning my authenticity right now?" Swims asked, his voice still controlled but with an undercurrent of growing anger. "You think I chose to work construction in Georgia heat for fun? You think I enjoyed having my electricity shut off because I couldn't afford the bill?" Hudson leaned back in her chair, a cold smile playing at her lips. "I think you're very good at telling people what they want to hear. The question is, when the cameras aren't rolling, when you're not selling albums, who are you really?" The accusation hit like a slap across the face. Swim sat silent for a moment, processing what was happening. The audience was dead quiet now, sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented and deeply uncomfortable. "You know what's funny about this?" Swims finally said, his southern drawl becoming more pronounced as his emotions intensified. "I came here thinking you'd understand. You came from nothing too, right? American Idol, the whole journey. I thought we'd connect on that level." Hudson's expression hardened further. "Don't you dare compare our situations. What I went through, what I achieved, that's real success. That's real struggle. You singing covers on YouTube from your bedroom doesn't make you the same as someone who's actually earned their place in this industry." The words landed like bombs in the studio. Swim's face flushed red, and for the first time since sitting down, he looked genuinely angry. "Earned my place? Lady, I've been grinding for 15 years. I've bled for this music, literally and figuratively. Who the hell are you to tell me I haven't earned anything?" But Hudson wasn't finished. She leaned forward now, her voice dropping to a more intimate but somehow more venomous tone. Here's what I see, Teddy. I see someone who got lucky with a viral moment, who's riding a wave of sympathy, because people feel sorry for the big guy with tattoos who used to work construction. But when that wave crashes, and it will, what's left? The question hung in the air like smoke, toxic and suffocating. Swims stared at her in disbelief, his breathing becoming more rapid. Members of the production crew were now openly concerned, with several stepping closer to the stage area. I can't believe this shit, Swims muttered, shaking his head. I actually respected you. Hudson's eyes flashed dangerously. Respect? You want to talk about respect? Respect is earned through decades of work, not handed to you because you can sing a decent cover song and people feel bad for your sob story. The atmosphere in the studio had become electric with tension, like the moments before a thunderstorm breaks. What had started as an interview was rapidly deteriorating into something much darker, much more personal. Swims was visibly struggling to maintain his composure, his hands now gripping his chair so tightly his knuckles had turned white. The silence that followed Hudson's brutal assessment stretched for what felt like an eternity. Camera operators held their breath, unsure whether to keep rolling as their host's reputation disintegrated in real time. Swims sat motionless, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths as he processed the full weight of what had just been said to him on national television. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. You know what, Jennifer? I think I understand what's really happening here. Hudson raised an eyebrow, her expression still carrying that cold superiority that had emerged like a mask slipping away. Oh, do enlighten us. This isn't about my authenticity at all, Swims continued, his tone gaining strength with each word. This is about yours. See, I did my homework before coming on this show. I know about the stories, the whispers in the industry about how you really treat people when the cameras aren't rolling. The shift in the room was immediate and palpable. Hudson's confident smirk began to waver as Swims pressed forward, his southern accent now cutting through the studio like a blade. You want to talk about earned success? Let's talk about how you've treated backup singers, how you've spoken to crew members, how you've thrown tantrums when things don't go exactly your way. That's the real Jennifer Hudson, isn't it? Hudson's face had gone pale, but her voice remained steady, though notably cooler. You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I? Swims leaned forward now, matching her earlier aggressive posture. I've talked to people, Jennifer. Musicians, sound engineers, people who've worked with you. They've got stories. Stories about a woman who demands to be treated like royalty but treats everyone else like dirt. The audience was dead silent now. But it was a different kind of silence, the kind that comes when people realize they're witnessing something that will be talked about for years. Hudson's handlers in the wings were making frantic gestures to cut to commercial, but the train had already left the station. You're making a very big mistake, Hudson said, her voice carrying a warning that made several people in the front row visibly uncomfortable. Swims laughed, but there was no humor in it. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're the one who made the mistake. You thought you could tear me down on your little show, make yourself feel bigger by making me feel smaller. But here's the thing. I'm not some scared kid looking for your approval. Hudson's mask of superiority was cracking now, replaced by something uglier, more desperate. You have no right to come on my show and— Your show? Swims interrupted, his voice rising for the first time. Lady, this is supposed to be about entertainment, about celebrating people's journeys. Instead, you turned it into some sick power trip where you get to decide who deserves success and who doesn't. The confrontation had reached a fever pitch, with both participants now openly hostile. Hudson stood up abruptly, her movement so sudden that several security personnel stepped closer to the stage area. I think we need to take a break, she announced, but Swims wasn't having it. No, we're not taking a break. We're going to finish this conversation right here, right now, he said, also rising from his chair. At his full height, the size difference between them was stark, but Hudson didn't back down. You want to finish this? Fine. Let's talk about your little viral moment. You think one song makes you legitimate? You think a few million views on YouTube puts you in the same league as artists who've been grinding for decades? Swim's face flushed red with anger. You just can't stand it, can you? You can't stand that someone like me, someone without your connections, without your machine behind them, could make it on pure talent and hard work. Pure talent? Hudson's laugh was bitter and harsh. You're a cover artist who got lucky. Half your success comes from singing other people's songs. Where's the originality in that? The insult hit deep, and Swim's composure finally began to crack. Other people's songs? Are you fucking kidding me right now? I've been writing music since I was 15 years old. Just because I started by covering songs doesn't mean... Language? Hudson snapped, as if she were scolding a child. This is daytime television. Oh, now you're worried about standards? Swim shot back. You just spent the last 10 minutes trying to destroy my character on national TV, but you're concerned about a curse word? The hypocrisy wasn't lost on anyone in the studio. Even Hudson's most loyal staff members were looking uncomfortable with how the situation had spiraled. But Hudson, perhaps realizing she was losing control of her own show, doubled down. I'm concerned about maintaining some level of professionalism, which clearly you're incapable of. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't handle real criticism, real questions about your career. Swim stared at her in disbelief. Real criticism? You call what you've been doing criticism? This has been a character assassination from the moment I sat down. You decided before I even opened my mouth that you were going to tear me apart. I decided to ask hard questions that maybe other interviewers have been too starstruck to ask, Hudson replied. But her voice lacked the conviction it had carried earlier. Bullshit, Swim said flatly. This was never about hard questions. This was about you feeling threatened by someone who represents everything. You're not genuine, humble, connected to real people. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Hudson's face contorted with rage, and for a moment, it seemed like she might lose control completely. When she spoke again, her voice was shaking with barely contained fury. How dare you question my connection to real people? I came from nothing. I built this empire from the ground up, and I've inspired millions of people around the world. Empire? Swims repeated, his tone dripping with disdain. Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm standing, it looks more like a house of cards built on ego and delusion. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Hudson's face had gone from pale to flushed, her hands trembling with rage. The studio felt like a powder keg about to explode, with everyone present sensing that they were about to witness something truly unprecedented. The studio had become a pressure cooker, with every person present feeling the weight of the impending explosion. Hudson's chest was heaving with barely controlled rage, her carefully constructed public image lying in tatters around her feet. Swims stood across from her, no longer the respectful guest who had walked onto her stage, but a man pushed beyond his breaking point. You want to know what your real problem is, Jennifer? Swims said, his voice now carrying the full weight of his anger. You're so terrified of being irrelevant that you'll destroy anyone who reminds you of what you used to be. Hungry, grateful, and actually talented. Hudson's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Talented? Don't make me laugh. You're a novelty act. A social media sensation who'll be forgotten in 2 years when the next tattooed pretty boy comes along. But Swims was ready for her. At least I'll be forgotten for being myself. You'll be remembered as the woman who let success turn her into everything she once claimed to hate. The words cut deep, and Hudson's facade finally cracked completely. You know what? I'm done with this shit. You want to come on my show and disrespect me? You want to question my character, my success, my journey? I'm questioning your humanity, Swims fired back. Because somewhere along the way, you lost it completely. That was the final straw. Hudson's face twisted with pure fury as she stepped closer to him, her voice rising to a near shriek. Get off my stage! Get off my fucking stage right now! The profanity from Hudson sent shockwaves through the audience. This wasn't the composed, professional host they knew. This was someone completely unhinged. But Swims wasn't intimidated. Gladly, he said, his voice now eerily calm compared to her hysteria. But before I go, let me tell you something. In 5 years, maybe 10, when people talk about this moment, they're not going to remember the woman who built an empire. They're going to remember the woman who destroyed it in 37 seconds of pure, ugly jealousy. Hudson was practically vibrating with rage now. Security! Get him out of here! "Get him out now!" Security personnel began moving toward the stage. But Swims held up his hand. "Don't worry, I'm leaving. I wouldn't stay on this toxic stage another second if you paid me." He began walking toward the exit. But Hudson wasn't done. Her voice followed him, shrill and desperate. "You'll never work in this industry again. Do you hear me? I'll make sure every network, every label, every venue knows exactly what kind of person you really are." Swims stopped dead in his tracks. The entire studio fell silent, waiting to see how he would respond to the threat. When he turned around, there was something almost pitying in his expression. "Lady, the only person whose career got destroyed here tonight was yours, and you did it to yourself." The simple statement hit harder than any insult could have. Hudson's face went white as the truth of his words sank in. Around the studio, crew members were already pulling out their phones, undoubtedly capturing what would become one of the most viral moments in television history. "This whole performance," Swims continued, gesturing at the chaos around them. "This meltdown, this tantrum, it's all been caught on camera. Every ugly word, every petty insult, every moment of you showing your true colors. And you know what? I don't need to destroy your reputation. You just did it for me." Hudson tried to speak, but no words came. For the first time since the confrontation began, she seemed to understand the magnitude of what had just happened. The realization was written across her face in stark, horrifying clarity. "You know what the saddest part is?" Swims asked, his voice now filled with genuine sadness rather than anger. "I came here tonight genuinely excited to meet you. I thought we'd have a great conversation about music, about our journeys, about the struggles we've both faced. Instead, I got to see exactly who you've become. And honestly, it breaks my heart." With that, he turned and walked toward the exit again. This time, Hudson didn't try to stop him. The fight had gone out of her completely, replaced by the dawning horror of what she had done to herself. As Swims reached the edge of the stage, he paused one final time. "For what it's worth, Jennifer, I hope you find your way back to who you used to be. Because that person, the one who sang with heart, who connected with people, who remembered what it felt like to struggle, she was worth respecting." The kindness in his words somehow made the moment even more devastating. Hudson stood alone in the center of her stage, surrounded by the wreckage of her own making, as Swims disappeared into the wings. The studio remained dead silent for several long moments. Camera operators didn't know whether to keep rolling. Audience members sat in stunned disbelief at what they had witnessed. Hudson's production team scrambled to figure out how to salvage what had become an unmitigated disaster. Finally, Hudson seemed to come back to herself. She looked around at the faces staring at her, her crew, her audience, her cameras, and seemed to realize for the first time that everything had been recorded. Every venomous word, every petty attack, every moment of her complete professional meltdown had been captured for posterity. We're going to take a break," she announced weakly, her voice barely audible. But everyone in that studio knew there would be no coming back from this break. Some things, once broken, simply cannot be repaired. As crew members finally began to move, as audience members started whispering among themselves, as the reality of what had just transpired began to sink in, one thing was crystal clear. They had all witnessed the end of an era. The Jennifer Hudson Show would never recover from what happened that night. The woman who had built her brand on warmth, authenticity, and connection had revealed herself to be petty, cruel, and threatened by genuine talent. In trying to diminish Teddy Swims, she had diminished herself beyond repair. And Swims? He walked out of that studio with his dignity intact, having shown more class in defeat than his host had shown in victory. The man who had been attacked for his authenticity had proven it in the most public way possible, by remaining true to himself even when under assault. In the end, the confrontation that was supposed to destroy Teddy Swims had accomplished the exact opposite. It had revealed him to be everything he claimed to be: genuine, resilient, and unbreakable. And it had revealed Jennifer Hudson to be everything she had accused him of being: a fraud whose carefully constructed image couldn't survive 37 seconds of real pressure. The cameras finally stopped rolling, but the damage was done. In an industry built on image and perception, some mistakes are simply too public, too ugly, and too revealing to survive. This was one of them.